You're listening to the ADHD Support Talk Radio podcast. ADHD Support Talk is sponsored by addclasses.com. Visit www.addclasses.com to sign up for free webinars today. Well, hello and welcome back to ADHD Support Talk Radio. I'm your co-host, Lynne Edris, and I'm a productivity and ADHD coach. So I help overwhelmed professionals from all over the world learn to reduce procrastination, improve time management, and get more done with less effort so that they have more time, more energy, and even more money for what's most important to them. I'm a woman with ADD myself, so I've been where so many of my clients are and where so many of you guys may be right now, and I've come out the other side, so to speak. So I've gone from living in that constant state of chaos and overwhelm and underperformance that we all know far too well to living a life of more success and more fulfillment than I ever dreamed possible at one time. And I know you guys can share the same success yourselves. You can learn more about me, what I do, and the programs and services I offer at www.coachingadvantages.com. And if you'd like to join my next live online productivity workshop, you can simply text the keyword productivity to the number 33777 to find out about the next free event. Well, I'm really excited. I have on the phone with me today Kitti McKay, and I met Kitti, a year and a half, 2 years ago, and as soon as I learned what she did, I knew I wanted to have her on the show. So in just a moment, Kitti and I will be talking about clutter, clearing clutter, and the importance of ridding ourselves of clutter when you're managing ADHD especially. So welcome, Kitti. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about you and what you do?
Thank you, Lynn. It's a pleasure to be on. I'm honored. Well, I run Clutter Solutions by Kitti, which originally started as a decluttering service for helping seniors to downsize. And, you accumulate a lot of stuff after 30, 40 years. And a trusted business mentor suggested, well, why don't you look into virtual decluttering as opposed to actually physically having to go into people's homes? And that turned into a less intrusive, more focused way of doing things. My first clients were from this business school that I was in, and more of them I was able to help. Usually we would work from their office because this was near New Year, and people wanted a fresh start. So we would work on their offices, and I started to see a theme of they were entrepreneurs who were high achievers on multiple projects, and they would go from this thing to that thing, didn't finish it. I would ask them why. They say, well, this came up or that came up, and I'll get back to it. And I just, after 6 or 7 clients that were saying exactly the same thing, I was starting to see a mirror of myself.
Right.
So I started looking at my own habits, and I became determined to help not only with just the physical decluttering, but the reasoning behind it. And it's just basically turned into a science for me now. When they say that physical clutter creates mental clutter, they are not wrong. They are absolutely right. It does. I notice the difference myself. Even just if my kitchen counter is cluttered, I don't feel right.
Right, absolutely. And that's something that we've talked about before. That's something I tell my clients all the time. You've got to clear the clutter in your environment if you want your head to feel decluttered, if you want your head to feel clear and focused. It's so important, especially for those of us with ADHD. And when you're talking about those initial clients, those high-performing professionals that have too many things going on, jumping forth between, back and forth between from one project to another project to another project. I mean, you're talking about our tribe, right? I mean, it's no matter what you call it, that's how it shows up for a lot of us. And clutter really is a big problem among my clients. So when I learned that you did virtual decluttering, I was like, oh my gosh, she can be such a great resource for our community because it is so hard anyway to find someone to help with clutter, locally, who really understands why we get to that point and really understands that the solutions need to be individual. I just knew that you were someone that needed to be a resource for our community. I mean, it's such an important piece of getting your stuff together. And we coaches, we work virtually with people from all over the world, so I can help with systems. I can help talk you through approaches to decluttering. I can create with you systems to keep it from getting that way, to begin with, or to, help you maintain it. But the clearing piece is such an important piece of it. And to have somebody who really gets it and gets why it becomes that way, gets why, people need to have different solutions is, it's so important, Kitti. So I'm excited that I found you.
Well, back at you. Now, there's another element that just popped into my mind, and that is shame. Mm-hmm. People, when they have, this is the beauty of virtual decluttering, because you don't have to have someone in your home. You don't have to clean for the cleaning lady. You don't have to clean the entrance if what it is you want your office. And when things get out of control, there is a recurring, again, I'll say the recurring theme of shame. How did I let it get this bad? And not only that, but there's no use to clean up or organize it because it's just going to get that way again. Like there's a self-confidence thing in there as well.
Absolutely.
And it's self-perpetuating, but if you can get my patented one, well, it's patented in my own mind. This is one system, and just focus on that, then your confidence goes up. Yeah. I have spoken to these clients from January, and they have kept it that way. I'm so proud of them.
Right. It's amazing. It's amazing the difference it can make. And you're spot on. I mean, one of the universal challenges that come with ADHD for a lot of different areas, not just clutter, but clutter's a big one, is that shame factor. And if we don't address the shame factor, if we don't start to change the way we're looking at things, we can't be in a proactive problem-solving place. I always say, when you're in a blame and shame mindset, you're 180 degrees from where you need to be to solve your problems, because you can't be in that shame perspective and blaming yourself and beating yourself up and giving yourself, 40 lashes or whatever for being a bad person and not doing what you should do and all of that, and be proactively looking at the problem, in a problem-solving perspective. It's impossible. So for you to be able to help people get past that shame by helping them with the decluttering without having to be embarrassed about having someone else in their place, because that's a big barrier. That's a huge barrier, right? I've had clients who say, I would never want you to see, the room I'm working on. And I say, you have to shine a light on that. That's the monster under the bed, right? You have to shine a light on that. Take a picture, send it to me, right? And if that's too much for them, then we've got to work on sort of the mindset piece. But your ability to help people remotely from all over the world is, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's a wonderful idea, and it's such an important service. So we talked about the shame piece a little bit, but tell us, let's talk a little bit about what clutter does to us. What are some of the effects that clutter has on your clients and the people that you serve?
Oh, good heavens. Well, let's just take from a financial viewpoint. Did you know that 23% of North American adults admit, mind you, to paying their bills late, because incurring late charges because they paid their bills late because they can't find the bill.
Yeah.
The average North American spends $800 a year replacing items. So there's a money thing.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's an underestimation in our tribe. Both of those numbers are underestimations in our tribe.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And then if you feel stupid because you paid your bill late, or you can't find the masking tape or whatever, then you've still got the shame theme happening.
Yeah.
What else can I tell you? What it does to us is it just weighs on your brain. That's the best way to say it, is it just weighs on your brain. And client after client have told me, I feel so much freer and lighter, even if I start with clearing their floor. Right. Because you know how easy it is to drop all your totes and everything that you have.
Paper, everything. Right.
Get it off the floor, because from a feng shui point of view, that clears the energy.
right,
through your house,
right.
which is partly how I got started with feng shui. My clients say that they feel so much freer once they've cleared the floor, and once certainly after everything is done and we've got everything in place and it's organized. When I have checked back with them, they say, I am getting 3 times more accomplished than I used to, because not only because I'm not looking for things, but just, I just feel better when I feel better and more confident, because I know that I can strut my stuff through the day knowing that I got it together.
Yeah, it's huge, right? It really is huge in so many ways. What that blame and shame we were talking about does to your confidence and your belief in yourself and your belief in your potential is it's tragic. And the other thing that clutter does for a lot of my clients is it keeps them from having the real connections that we all need to feel fulfilled. A lot of my clients who struggle with clutter haven't had people in their homes in forever. They wouldn't dare invite people over. They wouldn't dare even, parents letting their children have play dates and come into their own homes. I mean, it's such a barrier, and it can create social isolation, which, again, we all have a need to connect with people. And, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, you do your own kind of connecting, but that's a basic human need. And clutter can be a real barrier to that.
Yes, absolutely. I even have 2 personal examples. One is my own childhood. Our place wasn't even cluttered, but my mother wouldn't let me have the other kids over to after school kind of thing, and so that was hard. That still haunts me. I still have a hard time. X number of years later, we won't say, inviting people into my home. And my other example is my late cousin, God bless her. Towards the end of her life, she developed cancer. She hadn't had people in her house in 15 years.
Wow.
And I helped her out she had a remission, so she was able to, bottom line is she was able to enjoy her remission with people coming to her house. And her smile was just, she said, Kitti, you made this happen.
Oh.
So I like to think I made a difference there. I still get goosebumps thinking about it. I never talk about her, but because it was personal, but I do know the difference that it made in her final days, because she could connect with people and invite them with pride into her home. Right.
And that connection piece is so important. And we haven't talked about this, but I don't ever, my house is not HGTV camera ready. It's lived in. I've got 2 young adults living here too, when they're home from college. I mean, it's lived in. My office is a real functioning, hard-working office. It's not always pretty. It's not always perfect, but I can have a neighbor ring the doorbell with my mail that was misdelivered and invite them in. I can have, friends over at the drop of a hat to, enjoy a drink or a meal or some conversation. And it's good enough. It's something that I can be proud of. It's something that I can be comfortable in. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be camera ready. It needs to be your kind of right. It needs to be in your sweet spot. And that's, I think, part of one of the things that our tribe struggles with is that perfectionism, right? Making it perfect, thinking everybody else's whole house looks like an HGTV house or, whatever. But it doesn't need to be that way. It needs to work for you and your family and your life. That's such an important piece to be able to bring those connections in and to be able to have your home be the hub of whatever it is you want it to be. If you don't like to entertain, that's fine too, right? Just for you to feel good in your space and to be able to function and to focus. It's just so important.
Well, I live alone, and my litmus test is I look around quickly and say, okay, if the super needs to come in, I live in an apartment building, if the super needs to come in to do a quick repair of something, is it good enough? Because I've seen other people's apartments. And it's good enough, but that is my test is can I have somebody in at the drop of a hat? And that feels so good when I can say, yeah, I can.
Come on in, right. I have a similar litmus test. My litmus test is, can I find what I need easily? And if there were years ago when my kids were really little and I was trying to get my stuff together, I remember our mailman was regularly misdelivering mail, and we have had a similar problem in this neighborhood in the last year, but going back 20 years or so. And the neighbors would ring the bell, and I would come and greet them on the front stoop and close the door behind me because I was too embarrassed for them to come in and see the disarray. And now my litmus test is, can I find what I need regularly? And if somebody stops by and rings the bell, can I invite them in? And that's all. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be, 100% anything. I just need to be comfortable, and it needs to be functional for me.
Right. And I can ask you, how do you feel? How does that affect your confidence level on a daily basis, Lynne?
It's huge. It's huge. my confidence in my ability to function, it's huge. It's so impactful. And again, my office isn't perfect. My husband that I always talk about, he's an engineer. He's very sort of linear and logical and super born organized and super sensitive to clutter, I would say. It makes him stressed and anxious. He ends every day with one piece of paper on his desk that is his to-do list and his calendar for tomorrow, his tomorrow, and then his inbox is at 0. His office is inside the entry, inside glass French doors. So, his office is in full view. My office is on the second floor behind a solid door because it's not quite so aesthetically perfect. I love it. Right. It doesn't need to be perfect. I've got a functional pile on the side that is stuff that I'm waiting on. I've got a functional pile in the small piles, both of them in the corner of my desk, and I know that's what I'm working on this week. And it's perfect for me, right? It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be perfect for me. But I'm more focused. I'm more clear. I'm more organized. Honoring my systems, keeping up with it, maintaining it. All of those things they're integral parts of every day for me. And once you figure out how to do it for you, it's just easy. It's much easier to keep up.
A lot of what I find also is overwhelm.
Oh, yes.
People just don't know where to start. If they're faced with a huge mess, and they just don't know where to start. So I touched on my quote one system before, and I've found that if you just break it down into one area at a time, say for example, okay, I'm just going to work on this one room or this one closet, and your natural tendency is to start in one area, say for example, of that room, and go, no, maybe I better do this other area. No, maybe I better do this other area. And just focus on the one area of that one room and then pick up one thing at a time. It's not going to happen overnight. The mess didn't occur overnight. It's not going to get purged overnight. And then implement one system only and stick to it. And right. Isn't that a big thing with our listeners, that sticking with one system?
Absolutely.
And until it's just such a habit that you can't break it.
Absolutely. We need to make sure that system is easy enough and simple enough, and that's what you do, right? I love your one system because one of the things I often find with clients, and I've done this myself, and I have a 23-year-old son with ADHD who's still in college, so it's a regular, cleaning up, getting his room cleaned up before he goes back to college every semester, can be quite an adventure. But his tendency, and like so many of us, our tendency is to, even if we start in that one place, you find something that belongs somewhere else, and you immediately take it to that other place, and then you take care of things in that place, and then that you go to somewhere else. It's kind of like the internet, right? Click here, go there, find this, go there, and we don't make a difference in anything that's measurable. So staying in that one focused area and working your way through so that you can see where you've been, so you can see the progress that you're making, is a huge dopamine boost. It's a huge motivation boost for us, and it's such an important, piece of it. But you figured that out in your one system, and helping people work through that in a practical way that's easier for them to see where they've been. It's easier for them to feel the progress, see the progress, and to reinforce that, the hard job that decluttering can be. And it's not a fast job, so that's generally the stuff that we aren't great at, we ADDers. But that one system really helps people hone in on where they are, where they're making progress, and really keep their focus on that, which is so important for us. It is absolutely so important for us.
You bet.
Awesome.
You bet.
Anything else you want to share, last thoughts you want to share with our listeners? And then, tell our listeners again how they can learn more about you, your website, anything like that.
Don't let it get the better of you. There is help. Again, I suppose really it comes back to the one thing. If you can even just put one thing away or pick one thing that you commit to yourself to, keeping one thing tidy. Now, my thing is my kitchen counter. I am committed to having it tidy once a day at 2 p.m. after my lunch. It's my commitment. It will be clean. It may be a total mess in about 3 hours after I've come in and dropped a bunch of stuff on it, but it will return to being clean at 2 p.m. the next day. There's a bit of freedom there for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have to keep it perfect all the time? No, you don't. Because by nature, we ADHDers are perfectionists. Right. So cut yourself some slack would be my last words, and just take it slow and simple.
I love it. Slow and simple. Don't let it get the better of you. And you're right, there is help. So, Kitti, do you have a website, or how would people learn more about you and what you do?
They could go to www.cluttersolutions.kitti, that's KITTI.com. There's a neat freebie, 7 steps to clear your clutter and 3x your productivity that they could download. Steadily adding blogs to this. I'm kind of a new blogger, but I'm finding all kinds of ways that clutter affects our lives, and I'm putting my writing skills to it. So visit that, and it's got my contact information. Also, any of your listeners, I would love to gift them with a 30-minute complimentary consultation to address perhaps an area that they just don't know where to start. I'm here to help.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Kitti. I know there are a lot of people listening who could really benefit from what you do, and you've given us some great tips and some great information to chew on today. So thank you for coming, Kitti. Thank you all for listening. As always, I appreciate your attention. If you have questions, or if you want to share your thoughts on this episode or any other, you can join us in the ADHD Support Talk Radio community on Facebook. If you enjoy our podcast, please go to iTunes and give us a review. The more reviews we have, the more people can find us. So thank you all for listening. Thank you so much again, Kitti.
Thank you, Lynn. This was a real pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Take care.